Hey YouTube, Black Cat again, and today I'll be presenting you an update video of my Blue Eyes White Dragon. And believe it or not, this deck actually won me second place at my recent locals at Cytex Gaming. Unfortunately, I lost to Sparls yet again, but I will have my revenge. So let's get right to it. So I decided to rearrange my Divine Blue Eyes deck. It's the same deck, but I decided to add some new twists, and honestly, I'm very happy with the results. Like, this deck is really powerful as it is. So, first up, we got 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons, of course. Still one of the most powerful normal monsters in the game, 3,000 attack, so how can you go wrong, right? Next up, we got Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon. You just simply need to reveal Blue Eyes White Dragon from your hand and special summon this guy. And he becomes Blue Eyes White Dragon on the field and in the graveyard, so he is revivable through Return of the Dragon Lords and through Maiden with Eyes of Blue. So that's really great. Even Master with Eyes of Blue can bring this guy back. But anyway, he's also got the same attack strength. But once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls, pop it, and also that. But of course, this monster cannot attack when he activates the effect. But sometimes I don't ever rely on the popping effect. I just mainly need to guard my friend with this. Next up, we got 2 Dragon Spirit of Whites. This card counts as a Blue Eyes. But when this card is summoned, normal or special, you get to banish one card on your opponent's, or banish one spell or trap on your opponent's side of the field, and once during either player's turn, you get to tribute this card and special summon one Blue Eyes monster as long as your opponent controls one monster at least. So kind of like a Cyber Dragon based thing, but again, he's a free tag out regardless, and you can special summon the regular Blue Eyes this way. Next up, we got, and a lot of people were actually kind of interested when I first played this, but 2 Arcbreak Dragons. A lot of people were very surprised that I was running this, and they didn't understand like why. Well, once I got them to read the effect, they were like, "Oh, it's like, wow, this card really keeps this deck highly consistent now." So anyway, on the last turn this card is sent, you get to special summon one level 7 or 8 dragon from during either player's standby phase. And of course, it's a one-time use effect for each Arcbreak Dragon. And also, this card is special summoned from the graveyard. You get to banish all face-up spell and traps on your opponent's side of the field. And he gains 200 attack and defense points for each banished spell and trap by this effect. So generally, like, this is actually a Pen Magician's nightmare, really, because they lose their scales, they lose all their Star Pendulum grabs, anything that they use face-up. Even Spirals are afraid of this card. I managed to win my first duel against Spirals, and this guy really helped out a lot, but unfortunately, game 2 and 3, I lost mainly because we were playing through turns, and I have a hard time playing that way. Just because, like, sometimes you just can't rush on those turns, you know, you just really can't. But anyway, this guy really helps me out. He's actually won me a lot of duels. I defeated Ancient Gears, Burning Abyss, and even True Dracos thanks to this guy. He's really done my work for me. So yeah, like, True Dracos, I managed to trample him. It was still a struggle, but I still won against him, you know? Next up, we got the 1 Red Eyes Darkness Metal. Of course, he's limited. You get to banish 1 dragon on your field and special summon him from your hand. And also, once per turn, you can special summon any dragon type from your hand or graveyard to the field. So, like this, and I know Red Eyes and Blue Eyes don't usually mix, but this guy is an exception. Just because, you know, he's able to recycle some of my best dragons. And he can even revive my Archwave if I wanted to. Now, funny, you don't really need to banish a dragon to summon him. You can also summon him through other means, which I will get to later. So, like, even though he's a level 10, I believe, again, you don't need to really use his his primary way to summon. In fact, it doesn't restrict you from reviving him any other way. Next up, we got Amorphage Goliath. He is a level 8, and you usually send him through the effect of Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon, which, again, I'll get to later. Now, while he's on the field, neither player can special summon from the extra deck except a Morphage monster. So basically, the point of this guy is to first set up your board and then revive him from your grave once you pitch him with Trade-In, Dragon Shrine, anything, you know? And just revive him with Return of the Dragon Lords or the means of Arcbreak Dragon. And yeah, even Pen Magicians have a hard time getting around this because, again, you're trapped. You can't access your extra deck because of him. But once he's gone, I won't be able to Pendulum summon him anymore. But he's got a high attack, so I'm pretty sure I'll be alright with him. Alright, next up we got 3 Whitestone of Ancients. Very important in this deck. Once on the turn it's sent, during the end phase, you can special summon 1 Blue Eyes from your deck. So you mainly aim for your Dragon Spirit of White or Blue Eyes White Dragon. It is a tuner as well, so you could Use it to summon out one of your synchro monsters. And you can also banish this card from your graveyard and add one Blue Eyes monster from your graveyard back to your hand. So it's a really great card to, even in this format. So just use it wisely. That's all I can say. Now people tend to wonder like why I run this at 2, but I think it's actually better balanced this way. 2 Sage with Eyes of Blue. I think 2 is actually the perfect number for this deck because running 3, he's actually a card you don't want to draw too often, mainly because of his search effect can be Ash Blossomed. But if you're lucky, you can definitely bring out one of your other level 1 Light Tuners. So only use his search effect when absolutely necessary. But you mainly need him to discard and target one effect monster you control, so you can summon a Blue Eyes from the deck. And I mainly use his effect towards one of my favorite cards. In fact, it's my favorite card of all time. 2 Maiden with Eyes of Blue. I used to run her at 3, but I decided to knock her down at 2 just because it does keep the deck better balanced. So yeah, you discard Sage, target her, you can get 2 free Blue Eyes in general. A lot of people don't run Maiden at all. I do just because like I really love her effect. She's a really great card, and the fact that she's a tuner, she never lets me down. I could never build a Blue Eyes deck without her. That's just how it is with me. But yeah, 2 Maiden, 2 Sage, I think it's the perfect ratio for this deck. Trust me, it really does balance things out a lot. And again, like I don't find myself breaking a lot in this deck ever. There have been a couple instances I have, but that's just of me poor shuffling. But once I reshuffle and all that, I'm basically good. Next up, we got the 1 Master with Eyes of Blue. Basically the opposite of Sage. When you normal summon him, you can add 1 level 1 Light Tuner from your grave back to your hand, so he's a good way to recycle your tuners. And also you can target 1 effect monster you control, shuffle him back into your deck while he's in your graveyard, and summon 1 Blue Eyes monster from your grave. So you can also target Maiden with this effect as well, so he's really, really excellent. And for the last of our tuners, we got Effect Veiler. You can search her out with Sage with Eyes of Blue, and recycle her with Master with Eyes of Blue. So you can endlessly loop Effect Veiler over and over again, because Effect Veiler is very meta relevant in this engine. So yeah, like Effect Veiler just comes in handy, and it's also a tuner as well, and it's a spellcaster, so it's great. All right, moving on to our spells, we got 3 Melody of the Awakening Dragons now. I just got my 3rd one recently. I was okay with 2 actually, because with my Divine Blue Eyes, I didn't need it as much, but now that I am running a full Blue Eyes engine, 3 is actually what you need in this deck. So you can discard any 1 card and search out 2 dragons as long as it has 3,000 attack or more with 2,500 or less defense. So plenty of options in this deck, so there you can't go wrong with it. Next up, we got 2 Trade-In, only just because the draw power in this deck is just so real. Like, you pitch 1 level 8 a level 8 monster, draw 2 cards. And of course, even if it's Ash, like, believe it or not, Ash doesn't really stop my deck too much, because like I've seen it a lot, but it didn't really slow me down at all. Like, yeah, I might, because the thing is, the point is to pay costs to get all your dragons into the graveyard as quickly as you possibly can. Next up, we got 3 Return of the Dragon Lords. I finally got a playset, thanks to a couple of my friends, so I'm really happy that they helped me out. But generally, you can special summon 1 level 7 or 8 dragon from your graveyard, and then you can banish this card whenever your dragons are about to be destroyed by battle or by card effects. But of course, it's only for that one time, and you just gotta so you would have to simultaneously banish this card from your graveyard just to protect your dragons over and over again. But you don't want to waste it, so use it when absolutely necessary. We got 2 Silver Scries. Since I got a lot of normal dragon options in this deck, I felt like 2 was actually appropriate, just because like it really helps me out to get around with like really powerful boss monsters and problematic spells and traps with Dragon Spirit of White. So like this card is very, very important. In fact, I think this card actually helped me a lot through a little bit more with True Dracos, like Arcbrave did, because I was able to constantly bring back my Dragon Spirit of White and just get rid of that Dragonic Diagram. That diagram has got to go. That's all I can say about that. Next up, we got 2 Ravine. A lot of people didn't saw this, and they were like, what? You run a field spell with Blue Eyes? Well, yeah, like this card actually helps a lot. You discard 1 card and send 1 dragon type. Of course, you always want to send Arcbrave. Arcbrave is the main dragon you want to send to the graveyard, along with any others you can. And because Arcbrave, again, is a free special summon. You could also use this to send a Stone of Ancients. Sometimes I usually have one of my stones, so I just pay that for cost and just send one of my other boss dragons to the graveyard. So like it's really powerful in this deck, and 2 is actually the perfect number you want to run, because Sometimes you don't always want to rely on it because this card can get Ghost Ogred. So, but again, that doesn't really matter. As long as you pay your cost, you're pretty much set. Next up, we got 2 Dragon Shrines. I usually use this to bait out my opponent from using all their hand traps, so I'm usually okay with losing this. But generally, you want to send a normal dragon first, and then send an additional one due to this card's effect. So it really comes in handy in situations. But 2 is all you need to run. Do not run 3 or 1. You need this as soon as you can. 2 is the perfect number because 3 will make it situational. 2 is the perfect balance. So please only run this at 2. Alright, next up we got the 1 card to Consonance. Since I am running Stone of Ancients, it's a good way to get an additional draw power. The only other field spell I play is Mausoleum of White. This card is actually really powerful now, the way the new format is and with the new cards that came out. But this essentially gives you an additional normal summon, as long as the second one is level 1 Light Tuner. Once per turn, you can pitch 1 normal monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard and target 1 monster you control. And it gains 800 attack and defense points based on that monster's level by 100. And also, so you can also target Maiden with this effect as well, and really comes in handy. But this card is basically a free searchable Raigeki-like card, which is basically Burst Stream of Destruction. So I really like Burst Stream of Destruction even more now, thanks to this card. You banish this from your graveyard, search out Burst Stream of Destruction, and yeah, you pretty much blow up your opponent's board if they make the mistake of Ghost Ogring it. Next up, we got, of course, Burst Stream of Destruction. This is the Raigeki of this deck. You can search it out through Mausoleum of White's banishment effect. But as long as you control Blue Eyes White Dragon, you can activate this card and banish, or not banish, but destroy all monsters your opponent controls. But your Blue Eyes White Dragons will not be allowed to attack. But that's okay. There are ways you can still attack and do damage to your opponent, so I'll get to those later. We got 1 Dragon's Mirror. I have that, surprisingly, even though I only run this at 1, I've actually top decked this a lot during the tournament on Saturday, the one I did last Saturday. And yeah, it saved me a lot. It helped me defeat Ancient Gears. It brought out 1 monster that the Spiral player couldn't get over at all because he had nothing to go against it. So yeah, this card's really saved my butt a lot. We got 1 Monster Reborn, of course, now that it's legal, might as well. And of course the new Dragon Revival Rhapsody. Now this card I like a little bit more than Soul Charge because even though your opponent will not take battle damage, you can still at least enter your battle phase. So it's a good card to go in first or second, you know? As long as you control a spellcaster, you can special summon 2 dragons, up to 2 dragons, as long as one of them is a normal type, or a normal monster. And then, yeah, and it's also a way I could bring back my Red Ice Darkness Metal so you can get even more dragons out. So yeah, like this card's really good. It's like, I didn't think it was going to be... At first I was like kind of against the whole battle damage thing, but you know what? It really doesn't matter. Because the point is to, like, get your opponent wide open so that way it just makes things difficult for him. Alright, moving on to our extra deck, we got 2 Blue Eyes Spirit Dragons. Requires a Blue Eyes monster and a tuner monster. But you Synchro Summon this, and your opponent, once per turn, you can negate an effect from your opponent's graveyard if he tries to activate anything. And also, your opponent, but both players, I believe, are not allowed to special summon 2 monsters at the same time. So, like, this card stops, like, if you're up against Dark Magician, it stops navigation in its tracks, so you can't, because it special summons 2 monsters at the same time. This also slows down pendulum summoning, so that means they can only pendulum summon 1 monster. And yeah, like, and also, I usually tag out during the end phase of my opponent's turn for the next guy I'm about to show you. Azure Eyes Silver Dragon. While this card is, on the turn this card is special summon, all my dragons, including themselves, but basically the ones I currently control, cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. And once during my standby phases, I get to special summon 1 normal monster from my graveyard each turn. So it's like, he's really powerful and he's really got a really high defense for 3,000, so like that guy really does his job. Next up we got Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, which sometimes I do bring out through the effect of Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. On the turn it's special summon, you get to bounce back 1 monster your opponent controls. But of course, if you summon it through Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, it is going to get destroyed at the end of the turn. But it's just a good way to bitch slap your opponent on certain cards that, like I was up against Trickstars once, actually, and he tried to loop Lilybell's attack strength after he special summoned it once. So as soon as I tagged out with Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, I bounce it back before he can end the duel with Lilybell's direct attack ability. And finally, for our sinkers, we got Crystal Wing, which I just used this as material, by the way, for one of my level 1 tuners. And I can bring him out, but it's very rare that I bring it out. I don't know, it's not really too reliable in this deck anyway. So, like, he's just there as a bonus, you know. Alright, next up we got our fusions. Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon does not require polymerization of any kind. Just requires 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons, and so it's contact fusion. And this monster cannot be destroyed in battle, and he can make 2 attacks towards your opponent's monsters only. And if it fails to destroy a monster in battle, he gets to banish that monster that it battles. And it does not target, and it does not destroy, so it's like, he's a really good way to beat over like Chaos Maxes, Spore Loads, anything like that. Next up we got, of course, the regular Blue Eyes Ultimate. I know he's just there just because, you know, he's iconic, and plus I do sign in a Blue Eyes Shining Dragon, which I will get to later. So, like, that's why I run the regular one. And then, of course, the Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, which I don't rely too much on this deck, but he's a good way. If I can manage to pull him out without any issues, I can definitely OTK my opponent. Because, you know, you could send Blue Eyes Fusion monsters from your extra deck to the graveyard and give them an additional attack. Next up, we got Five-Headed Dragon, which I actually used this to defeat against the Ancient Gear player. He could not get around it, mainly because he milled his limiter removal with Reasoning. So he couldn't really power up his Ancient Gears, but then again, this monster can only be destroyed by light attribute monsters anyway. So, like, in general, there was no out to him for that one. And this is what I used against the Spiral player, which again, won me the first duel, but games 2 and 3 just failed miserably, mainly because we had to play for turns. But anyway, it's First of the Dragons. It just requires 2 normal monsters. This monster cannot be destroyed in battle except by a normal monster, and cannot, he's unaffected by monster effects. And if you happen to have like multiple Return of the Dragon Lords in your graveyard, you can banish them, protect them, and all that from spell effects and traps. Alright, next up, we got 4 more monsters to go, which is Dragonite Felgrand. You mainly use this effect to detach target one monster on the field, and it has its effects negated, but it's unaffected by other card effects. You mainly just target your own Blue Eyes White Dragon with this. So it's a good way, like, let's say if I was up against a Borlo Dragon, and I have a Blue Eyes White Dragon at full power, and if I summon this guy out, I'll detach 1, target my Blue Eyes White Dragon, he's safe from Borlo's effect. And then I can just attack it, and that's it. And also the, so like, it's really good. It's like, it's a really powerful card to use. So like, that's why I decided to start running him, just because he also looks pretty badass. Alright, next up we got number 107, Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon. At the start of the battle phase, you detach 1, negate all other face-up cards. Well, negate the effects of all other face-up cards, so like, and all other face-up cards have their effects negated, and all monsters must battle with their original attack strength. But this card can make 2 attacks. It doesn't have to be towards monsters, just makes 2 attacks in general, and if your opponent activates an effect at any given point, he gains 1,000 attack and defense points during the battle phase only. Alright, next up, of course, we got Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon. I'm not going to go over his effect because I don't actually use it. I just use him mainly to bring out the Dark Matter Dragon. This guy lets you pitch 3 dragons of different names for free to your graveyard, and your opponent is forced to banish 3 monsters from his deck. So it's like, he's really good, and he also does 2 attacks towards monsters, as long as you detach 1 Xyz material. Alright, moving on to our side deck now. We side our Divine Dragon Lord Felgrand, mainly because sometimes I'd like to get rid of problematic monsters that my opponent may try to use against me. But yeah, generally when he's revived from the graveyard, you get to banish 1 monster on his side of the field, and or in his graveyard, and based on that monster's level or rank, he gains attack strength by 100. We side the White Stone of Legend. I decided not to main it anymore just because it is situational now with this variant of Blue Eyes. But it does come in handy if I really need to bring it out, so I'll take off like one of my Ancients and just bring out one of these. Or take off one of my Maidens, depends on what I prefer. We just got, just for shits and giggles, it's Kaiba Man. Why not? You know, he's just a fun little iconic card. But he's a free Blue Eyes White Dragon regardless, and can't be Ash, so why not? Next up we got our third Sage and Maiden, just in case, you know. You already know what these do. And of course, I actually found he's actually pretty good in this as a side if I really need to, but I also run Protector, which gives me when he's normal summon, I could just special summon one level 1 Light Tuner from my hand. And then I can target one effect monster I control, special summon a Blue Eyes from my hand. So this card, you know, like, he's really good, you know. And the fact that he gives you a free summon for another tuner, you can also bring out this one, which is not too bad. It's just a 4th Melody of the Awakening Dragon. Priestess with the Eyes of Blue. But she actually has a really interesting graveyard effect, actually. So she's the only Eyes of Blue monster that doesn't special summon. So what this does is that you target her with an effect, and you get to add 2 Blue Eyes monsters of different names from your deck to your hand. So again, Melody of the Awakening Dragon. But if she's in your graveyard, and while she's in your graveyard, during either player's turn, I believe. Now this is interesting. If one of the Blue Eyes monsters you added to your hand through her effect is on the field and is about to be destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to shuffle back that Blue Eyes monster back into your deck and special summon her in its place. So generally, like, it helps you recycle your Blue Eyes if absolutely necessary. So it's a good way to, like, deal with that Eater of Millions card. So yeah, generally she actually helps out with Eater of Millions. Like, that card seems to be a threat to this deck. Now I can get around it. It's no problem, even if I don't have her, if I'm not running her at the moment. But sometimes using her effect does come necessary when it comes to situations like that. So Priestess is something you should take under consideration. Of course, it's optional. So yeah, like, she's actually not a bad card to play. Alright, next up we got Deep Eyes White Dragon. When a Blue Eyes monster is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to special summon from this card from your hand, target one dragon in your graveyard, and you get to copy its attack strength to its own. And also, if this card gets destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you get to blow up your opponent's entire board of monsters generally. And of course, also for fun, I like to bring out the Blue Eye Shining Dragon, which I have managed to pull off quite a few times. Cannot be targeted by monster spells or traps, and he gains 300 attack points for every dragon that's in your graveyard. So this card's just really powerful. So generally, like, when he's targeted, he negates it, and it's not once per turn. That's what I should say, actually. Alright, next up we got Runes of the Divine Dragonlords, which I did play against True Dracos, but the card can be fairly situational, but if you know how to play it right, it can really save you. What you do is while you control a level 7 or 8 dragon, any monster that's special summoned except from the graveyard. So this doesn't really affect my deck too much because everything is revived from the graveyard. Those monsters will have their effects negated for the turn. So it's basically lose one turn. Also, you can send one monster you control, produce a Dragonlord token, which, by the way, you can actually banish a Dragonlord token since it is a dragon type for Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. And if this card is in your graveyard, you can pitch one level 7 or 8 dragon and add this card back to your hand. People have actually made the mistake of actually ghost ogring this, so they just waste a resource. And for me, like, again, I want my dragons in the graveyard, so that's why I don't mind pitching something just for that. Of course, we got the regular polymerization, just if I decide to, like, run it together with Dragon's Mirror, it does come in handy. And then the only 2 traps I'll run, and they're sided. We have 2 of them: Oasis of Dragon Souls and Champion's Vigilance. This is just another revival card, but the card you revive goes into defense mode and becomes a worm type. So it's really good in its own right, and it's a good way to bring out Archbrave as well, or even Divine Dragonlord Felgrand, whichever you prefer. And then Champion's Vigilance is the solemn judgment of this deck. It negates any summon and negates any spell and trap as long as you control a level 7 or 8 or level 7 or higher normal monster. I'm sorry. So this does not require life points to pay. You just need a level 7 or 8 or level 7 or higher normal monster. God, I'm just so used to the level 8s now because of that Return to the Dragonlords. But anyway, and of course we just got the Dragonlord token, which of course you generally just use for that Ruins of the Divine Dragonlords. Well, that's all I got for you today, so hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you again on the next one.